It's been a while now that I've been using the Note Max, and I certainly feel it's time I owe you a full review. So I thought, well, what I wanted the Note Max to do was to be a typewriter. And so I thought what I'd do is write the whole script for this video on the Note Max, and I'd tell you how that goes. But some quick highlights, let's start with that. It is great for layouts. I do like the new infinite scroll that you get in the Boox Notes app. And you can add that just by basically increasing the margins to any size that you like. And you've now got a really big canvas that you can just pan and zoom around. And what I love is just having those PDFs that I need to reference to hand at full size. That's really good. And it does work very well as a typewriter, although there's debate between using it with the keyboard case or just to have a Bluetooth keyboard, which I must say I have been really preferring. We'll talk about that a little bit later. And the thing which made me want to go back away from it once I'd finished testing out at work was that it was just too big for my bag. Now, if I had to stay at the same desk at work the whole day long, then it wouldn't bother me. But because I have to move between different classrooms, this is my bag. And I have to use my school laptop. I just find, for instance, that the Manta fits in just that much more easier than this thing does. But it does fit, as you can see. Putting that in and out of your bag 4 or 5 times a day, it's not what I'm about. But that being said, it has been sandwiched tight in that bag for long periods, and there certainly seems to be no damage. So it does seem to have been really robustly made, even given its size and its thinness. This tablet is 4.6 millimeters thin, so it's incredible they've managed to make it so robust at that size. The split screen is of course incredibly useful as well, and I think that is possibly one of the main reasons to go for this tablet. You can have whatever you're working on one side, and let's say that reference PDF on the other. I think it's taken me a little while to get around to this review because I think I'd really built this up to be something that it maybe wasn't. And when I got out of the box, it let me down in some ways. But gradually it has worked its way back into my e-ink life, and it pretty much sits here in this laptop mode on this desk, and I do get a lot out of it. For example, I am often referencing my notes in OneNote, which of course is exactly what I've been typing this in and what I've been referencing throughout this review so far. And more recently, I've been reading Dante, and I'm just loving having the space for the whole text and the footnotes on one layout. I mean, this is really great. I've been looking at multiple translations, I've been studying them, it's been a really good time. And I think this thing is great for studying, whether that be uni notes, whether that be Bible studies, maybe classic poems like me. It is a really great time. And it's all on the Carta 1300 e-ink screen, which is the latest and therefore the highest contrast e-ink screen that you can get. We've talked a lot on this channel about whether it's using the BSR, which is the Boox Super Refresh, the GPU-enabled high frame rate, that should give it the crispest e-ink look with the highest refresh rate possible. Whether it's doing that at its very best. Now, it definitely does have BSR. Now, if it didn't, the contrast would be much lower in the faster refresh mode. And actually, the entire time, pretty much I'm living in the fast refresh mode, which is the A2 mode. It's incredibly responsive in that A2 mode. And when you go back to the Boox Note Max from another tablet, which doesn't have that high refresh mode, you really do notice it, that every action is just that little bit longer to happen, and you do get more of that ghosting as well. And whenever non-BSR tablets go into that A2 mode, you see a much greater loss of detail and a much greater loss of contrast. So I'd much rather have that BSR than not. Now, other reviewers have said that actually they prefer it, that Boox have now simplified the screen modes from 4 and sometimes 5 down to 2 and sometimes 3 with the Regal. So you can now see it just as the A2 mode when you need a bit of speed and the normal mode when you want it to look its best. And the Regal mode is best for text apps when you don't want to see a full refresh every single page. It should do a great job of maintaining that clarity without having to do a full page refresh there. But I personally do miss the balanced mode that we had in most other BSR enabled tablets from Boox. I just thought it was something that wasn't broken really. But what was broken with the BSR enabled tablets was the battery performance. And I'm happy to report now that certainly standby times are much better. And now it sits on the desk for weeks on end and it's ready to be woken up in a moment and reference something or type something. So good job in that, at least Boox. It is a great processor. It's responsive enough for what it is. It's not going to beat the very latest Snapdragon phones and tablets, but for e-ink, actually the processor is right up there. It's a Snapdragon 855, and overall we're just getting a much better responsiveness than from most e-ink tablets. Now there are issues with the screen not being as bright as it could be. If, for instance, if you do a dark square on the Notes app and you pull it around, then you can see that the screen is slightly lighter behind that square. There must be something therefore about the way in which the black is pulled down or the white is pushed up. Maybe a different voltage that it uses. Maybe it uses a higher voltage for the quicker refresh than it does for the whole screen refresh, because the background, the general tone of the screen when it's not got any content on it, doesn't get as light as that. You can just see it being lighter behind it there. You can also use it as a monitor, and here it is just running Space Desk from my computer. And yep, you can access any of your things, and as it's a BSR enabled tablet, it does look really quite good. And to some extent, you can use it as an alternative to a laptop. And this is where I really want it to excel. And unfortunately, it's just a little bit let down by Android. The Android apps, they're just simply not as fully featured. They're not as the same level as the desktop apps. I don't know why it has to be that way. It's certainly not Boox's fault though, that Microsoft, for example, hasn't put that kind of level of development into their Android apps. And also color is just useful for apps. It just is. Now, I was really expecting this device to be made by the keyboard case, and that for me was the use of this device. And unfortunately, Boox, they've really not shown the way here. I've added some little pads here just to keep it elevated off the screen when it's closed up with these weird sharp bits putting pressure on your e-ink screen. There have been issues with the manufacturing, with some of the key presses. It hasn't felt well manufactured, it hasn't felt polished, it hasn't felt like it justified the price tag of the keyboard. You would be better, I think, just saving your money, buy a nice mechanical keyboard for your desk, a nice Bluetooth keyboard and mouse combo to take with you. Overall, that'll be cheaper than just the price of this keyboard case. So I think that those two things, the ghosting and the keyboard case, they have just surprised us because it's not really up to Boox's usual high standards. The ghosting, certainly, they normally get e-ink just right. But all in all, I have enjoyed typing this on it. I have enjoyed having it here as my typewriter and reference on the desk. And possibly if you're looking for that in your life, then this would be a great device for you. Also, some of the keyboard issues perhaps were first batch issues. I do have a number of viewers who've told me that they have had their keyboard case replaced. They had the double space issue, for instance, at first, and it's been fine. The double space has happened to me twice during this review, and there's one example of it right there. I think you can perhaps see some of the keys are just a little bit wonky on mine. I think just generally, I don't think the manufacturing tolerances on this keyboard case were quite as they should have been. There was also room for a function row up here, I think, and a proper delete key, not just a backspace. And you'll certainly need to remember the Alt+T function, which turns the trackpad on and off so you don't get those annoying things when you're typing and you accidentally touch it and moves the cursor to a different row. Here you can just see that key is not quite seated in properly, is it? I think there's something gone slightly wrong with this keyboard case manufacturing. Maybe this is just the first batch though. And lastly, for an e-ink tablet, is it overkill? For the core uses of e-ink, then maybe the Note Max is a bit much, and that's one of the reasons why I'm so enjoying the Supernote Manta. It's just exactly what an e-ink tablet should be. But it is still brilliant for those three core uses. It's great for reading, it's great for note-taking, and it's great for writing. It does excel for reference though, and I think if that's your use case, I think this is your choice in 2025. But then what you have is this versatility of this open Android system, being able to make it do whatever you want it to do. And so if your core use case is different to another person's, you can adapt this to make it what you want it to be. It's a minimalist device, but it's your minimalist device. And so even here, just sat static on a desk, is it a bit much? No, it's flipping brilliant. It really is great.